So I've got a lot of questions. Jen, I'm going to start with the biggest one of all, and I love unanswerable questions. So, okay, great. How do we solve this?
Wow. Well, I think this is a solvable problem. Mm-hmm. That's what's sort of so poignant about this film, is that it's not that we don't know what the answer is that we haven't yet had the will to make it happen. I think that with the dramatic changes we're seeing in technology, we have every ability to change the way the system works, to enable people to spend less of their money, less of their mind share, less of their time on managing their financial lives, and spend more of those things on what we all need to be doing, on working, on raising our children, on getting ahead, on starting our businesses. I think it's eminently solvable.
Why do you think we haven't had the will to solve it in the past?
I think this has been a hidden in plain sight kind of issue. You know, when there's a bank branch on every corner in major cities like this one, it's hard to realize that other people may be having challenges. It may not relate to us, but this is really about everybody, particularly in the wake of the financial crisis. More Americans than ever are struggling financially. This isn't just about us versus them anymore. This is about your brother or your sister. It's about the person who takes care of your kids. It's the person who does your dry cleaning. It's maybe the person in your office that you didn't realize. Lots of people are struggling with these kinds of everyday challenges. And so now that through this film and through the work that we and many others are doing, I'm hopeful that as we shine a spotlight on this challenge, that we can now shift to focusing on the solution.
Jane, just one other thing to point out is we may very well be at a tipping point because mobile has penetrated into all segments of the population, right? So even, doesn't matter if you're lower income, middle income, higher income, the mobile penetration is very high. Everyone has a smartphone right now. Smartphone prices are plummeting in price. And when you have a smartphone associated with software that can replace a bricks and mortar bank infrastructure at fractions of the cost, you can really start to reimagine what consumer financial services could be like. It's not banking the unbanked. It's imagining what could be as a result of these new technologies. And so you've got a couple of forces coming together that, to Jen's point, makes this problem a solvable one. We are still at the very beginning phases of this, but so many problems seem intractable in our country, and this isn't one of them. This is one that has a solution. It's rooted in technology, but we've got a long ways to go.
So, Dan, that was going to be one of the things that I asked you about. So you see some of the exorbitant rates that are charged, but yet it's a service, and people need the service at some times. Is that the answer? How do you bring down those rates so that they can get that service at a reasonable cost? You think that mobile is a huge part of the answer?
I do. I think if you think about traditional bank branching, you have very expensive bricks and mortar infrastructure, right? And for banks, like the bottom 40% of their customers are unprofitable. So what do? They start raising rates. They do high-low checking. For the last 18 years in a row, banks have raised fees. There's really very few free checking accounts anymore. You need a minimum balance of $750. That goes up every single year. The average checking account monthly fee is $5.78. That's going up every year. Americans spent $30 billion in overdraft fees. $30 billion in overdraft fees last year. It's an incredible number. But if you've got a very heavy labor sort of tellers, you've got bank branches, and you can replace that with software, and you can replace that with a mobile phone, and you can reimagine how financial services could be done at really fractions of the cost. And if you can pass on that savings to consumers, and imagine if out of that $40,000 that Derek and Davis talked about in the film that consumers spend over their lifetime, if we could return even half of that back to families and to communities, imagine the impact that would have on our country. And I think that's a inspiring goal for all of us to think about how might we be able to go and do that. And I think it's possible.
You know, we cover politics a lot on the Young Turks, and sometimes you'll see a politician just grab onto one issue and then ride it to success. I think if they campaigned on getting rid of overdraft fees, it would be an immediate win for them.
Although I have to say, one of the genius things about this film is that it doesn't really let anybody off the hook, right? There isn't any one set of institutions or organizations that's primarily to blame, right? There are things that banks do that hurt consumers. There are things about payday lenders and check cashers that don't work for people either, yet all of those actors play an important role in the system. And I think the point is that everyone needs to do better, and that there are roles for everybody, frankly. But we need to really understand how consumers live their lives and then design products and experiences that really solve for their pain points.
So part of the reason I love the movie is that you see they're so real, right? And you can everybody in the room can relate. Everybody watching can relate with at least one of the people and one of the stories that are being told there. And these are rational actors. You know, Justin's successful in business, and you know, I love the family from Rhode Island, and they didn't go to the payday loans for no reason. They went because they had a reason, right? And they use these services because they have to. And so the question is, can it be done in a slightly better way? And can it be done in a way that doesn't cost you $40,000 over your lifetime? Because that obviously could be spent in so many better ways. And look at how much they need every nickel and dime of that. So Derek and Davis, I was just wondering as I was watching it, just personal curiosity, how did you guys find the subjects of the movie?
I mean, it was an exhaustive search. You know, we literally had researchers on the ground outside check cashers and payday loan shops all over the country. That's how we found Justin. He saw one of our researchers and went up, you know, always on the hustle like he is. He said, hey, if you guys ever need an extra camera guy, here I am. Here's my card. And as it turns out, we started talking. We found out, you know, we asked why he was at the check casher and heard his story. Alex and Melissa are actually my cousins. So, you know, it's interesting, like, you know, you hear the 70 million, you hear how pervasive the issue is, but no one really talks about it. And it's something that I wasn't fully aware of until I started digging into it, but it didn't really become personal until that moment. We posted the trailer online. We'd been working on it for months. And Alex emailed me. He said, hey, great work. And, you know, this is actually something I relate to. So I called him up. I started talking to him, and I heard his story. And, you know, I talk to him all the time. I had no idea. You know, most people don't talk about their finances. They don't, you know, and that's why Tiffany and Alex and Justin and Debbie, and it's incredibly courageous for them to open themselves up to us. And, you know, to our crew, we're there with cameras. We're invading their home, and they're sharing these deeply personal stories and parts of their life with us. So
can Justin and Tiffany stand up? I think we should acknowledge them tonight. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. I think it's going to do some good.
Davis, what made you want to get involved with this project in the first place?
Well, it's an important issue. And when I didn't really know much about it. And when you learn about it, you're like, wow, that's not fair. And I'm sure a lot of people here feel the same way as me. When I watch the news, I get frustrated by the left-right debate, the financial divide. And when I hear stories about everyday people like my family, I got cousins in Ohio and in Missouri, and you know, I hear these things are unfair. I'm like, this is an important story to tell. And it's not only is it urgent, and it's affecting like hardworking people that have kids like me, it's also solvable. And so when you can tell a story that will actually do some good, I find that very attractive. And that's why we do what we do, is to hopefully tell a good story, start a conversation, do some good.
Yeah, I remember being a struggling entrepreneur, and every dollar counted. And so I was relating to Justin's story, and you know, Tiffany, I got kids, and God, that was heartbreaking. You know, obviously having to pull her out of private school, and so you know, it really reached, I think, everybody in that powerful way. So, Dan, why did American Express decide to get involved in this field and in this project in the first place?
Well, I think it's, as Davis said, it is a major issue for our country. And I think if we don't take personal responsibility as from both a corporation perspective and we leave this as a default to government, the government is struggling with a number of different things. It's got its own deficits that it's trying to manage. It doesn't have enough resources to fix. It's got its own issues in terms of moving important things through legislation. And I think as companies, we have an obligation to work, both the public and the private sector together, to address problems of importance to our country. And I don't think we can shrink from that responsibility. And as one of the leading financial services company, we have both assets and resources to be able to bear against this. And, we spent time actually out in the streets going, as if, we had no credit cards, no checking, standing in line, trying to cash checks, seeing firsthand what it's like. And when we saw what it's like, as I said in the movie, that it's practically a part-time job to manage and move your money, that every time you might want to make a transition from one form of currency to another, it costs you more and more money to go do so. We really thought to ourselves, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be this way. We can make a positive change here. We can do this. And so we became very inspired as a company to think that with technology, we can do a transformation of our own company. We can move from being what's really seen as an exclusive brand to being an inclusive and welcoming brand, because technology can allow us to do that. Stay true to what we stand for as a company, but try to work with a number of both regulators, nonprofits, other public companies, other organizations to really rally all of us around this cause. And for us inside American Express, it's been an inspiring vision for us to have, to try and work with others to help solve this issue.
Derek and Davis, I was curious again what you might have left on the cutting room floor, or what parts of the story would you have liked to have told more?
Well, I mean, like I said, we've talked to hundreds of people. There are no shortage of really, really powerful stories. I mean, it's a third of our country. So we filmed with a few characters that didn't make it in the film, and it's not because their stories weren't equally as powerful. It's just that once you start working with it, you see which characters work better with each other and which stories help tell the bigger picture. But there are just a lot of really personal, powerful stories that we heard over the course of our time researching and talking to people, and I wish we could tell all of them.
Any big lessons learned that you walk away with thinking, that you got out of it? And, it's personally touching. There's no question about that. But did you take away something personally for yourself?
Well, it could be any of us. What happened in this movie? Who of us who has a child wouldn't do what Alex and Melissa do for their child, or what Tiffany does for your child, and with a little bad luck, you could be in this situation. And I feel like it's not fair, and we as a country and as corporations and as storytellers need to do better by hardworking families, and that's my takeaway, and it's things have to change.
Jennifer, I want to go back to the idea of solutions here, because I always, on the show when we have problems, I don't like to just present the problems, because I feel I don't want the audience walking away hopeless. I want them to have an idea what the solution is, and full of hope on how we can affect change. So out of the different things discussed here, give me a sense of relative importance on the different possible solutions.
Mm-hmm. So I'll answer that in two ways. The first is I'll go back to something that Dan said. I'm not a corporation. I run a nonprofit, and so I can say what I don't think Dan wants to say, which is this is a market-based solution that I think we're talking about. He talked about how governments are stretched. That's true. Many of the folks profiled in the film and who are struggling have a range of challenges, but at the end of the day, there is an opportunity here for the market to work better for people. And so this isn't just a do-gooder opportunity. That's important. We all should take responsibility for each other. But at the end of the day, there's a real opportunity here for entrepreneurs, large and small, big companies, to take action, to redesign the way in which they engage with their customers so that what they're doing is really focusing on the financial health of their customers. At the end of the day, Americans are really not that focused right now on getting rich. They're focused on living their best life. And smart companies, the really excellent demand creators of our time, build businesses that cater to their customers' aspirations. And I think there is no better way in this day and age to build a successful financial services franchise than to deliver the kinds of financial products and services that are going to help your customers achieve financial health. Because financial health is what we should want for everyone, and it's not a one-time result. It's the kind of thing you achieve over the course of a lifetime, over the course of a customer relationship. And so I think by thinking about it that way, there's a real win-win-win opportunity for everyone here. I think everyone in the film and all the other Americans who are struggling, who we work with and talk to all the time, are happy to pay for value. But right now what they're getting is really not a fair deal.
Yeah, oftentimes, unfortunately, on the show we talk about how the market is broken down in some ways, right? But this is how the market's supposed to work, right? It's when you find a better way of serving the market, and then they get to keep some of the money, you make some money, and I believe that's how capitalism is supposed to work, right?
There was a time when financial services companies made money when their customers were successful. And I think one of the things we learned in the wake of the financial crisis and the recession was that too many financial services companies were making money in spite of their customers. And I think now we're really trying to reverse that trend. And I think it's eminently doable, it's eminently solvable, and technology, I think, is a big part of the solution.
Yeah, so we're a for-profit company, and we saw a market opportunity, which was, if I could toot our own horn a little bit, truth, right? We felt that the mainstream media in a lot of ways was representing the establishment, and that we could find a way to actually represent the audience and give them the truth and make money doing it. And that's how the markets are supposed to work. And as I saw in the movie, Dan, the interest rates being charged by the payday loans, I thought if I was a businessman in the financial services industry, I'd think, I bet I could make a lot of money and cut that in half, right? I don't know if I can cut it in half. That might be too ambitious, because you got to remember, of course, sometimes people don't pay back those loans, right? So you have to build in enough margin to be able to run the business. So they're not just, they're not just bad guys. There's margins there. But Dan, is there a market opportunity there, you think, for business to be able to, as we talked about here, to give back some money to the consumers so they're better off, and at the same time run it in a more efficient way so that a company can make money?
Yeah, I do think technology changes everything. You can do things in ways that you're not looking backwards, but you're looking forwards, and you're reinventing the entire model. And technology can enable you to do it for fractions of the cost of the way it used to be done. As a result of that, you can put out products and services into the market that are great benefits to consumers at fractions of what they currently cost today, and still make money as a company. We've done that with some of the products that we have right now, our Bluebird and our Serve products, which basically allow people to put money into like a virtual bank account for free, and not pay check cashing fees, not have to pay fees each time they have a transaction. It's a start. But I do think reimagining with technology what was and thinking about what could be is tremendously powerful. And as Jennifer said, can absolutely be a win for consumers and be a win for everyone around.
Right, and we can attest to how the online world is changing all those markets. So yeah, there's a lot of efficiencies yet to go. Justin's here, so I actually wanted to ask him more than anyone else about, since you watched the movie, so we get into your life and we want to know what happened next. So I think we have a mic for you, Justin. So how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Yeah.
How
about on the house front?
Right. No, I mean, on the house front, we're still looking for a house. I don't know if we're necessarily actively looking for a house. The business is growing or trying to, so it's kind of a war between where the money's going to go. Is it going to go towards the house, or is it going to go more equipment and further in the business? So that's kind of where we are. We have gotten a bigger place, so that's better, but we're not in the house yet.
I hear you on that too, brother. My wife and I have had a lot of conversations about where the money should go, whether it's the business or the house, etc. So are you trying to, I was curious whether you're trying to, and how you are, if you are, rebuild your credit score, because it's of course tough. I literally don't know how to do it. That
makes two of us. No, it's a long and arduous process. I've gone to a lot of banks. I've gone to a lot of credit unions. I've tried to open banking accounts. I've tried to establish lines of credit. If you know your insurance, if you got a quality insurance report to your credit, things like that. But what is it, 7 years before something falls off? So the amount of good, productive things that you can put in to your portfolio, I guess, your credit portfolio, it's really not reflective of any amount of work or productivity you have in your day-to-day or your business. I'm actively pursuing ways to repair my credit, and it's better than it was, but that's a result of time, not a result of anything that I've been able to put into it. So
yeah, and it's a frustrating process because I've been on both ends of it now, and when I had no money, things cost so much more, right? And when you have more money, then people give you stuff for free. It's like, no, I needed that 15 years ago. So there's a lot that I got from your story. So Derek, as you interviewed those hundreds of people, were there good success stories within the families of people who did rebuild their credit history, get back into financial institutions where then they didn't have to pay all the excessive fees and rates, et cetera?
Sure. I mean, you hear about it. I think those stories might not have fit the movie we were trying to do, so I didn't hear as many. But really, I mean, the picture that's painted is that it's once you're outside the system, it's very hard to get back in. And the more people we talked to, the clearer that became.
At the very end of the movie, when Tyler Perry is describing some of the innovative things going on around the country, there are a lot of really great new things happening. They're not yet at the scale we'd like to see them. But as an example, Justin, there are hundreds of organizations around the country that are working actively with consumers to help them rebuild their credit. I would love to talk to you afterwards and connect you with one of them. I mean, there really is, I think we are in an exciting moment where there is growing awareness of this issue, and there are a number of organizations and companies who are trying to do something about it. So I'm hopeful.
There are lots of startups that not only are trying to help to repair credit, but are looking at different ways of thinking about credit. There are the traditional ways that the traditional credit agencies have looked at credit, but there are startups that are looking at, okay, if we look at somebody's mobile phone records and we see how many times they call, where they call, what time of day they call, that kind of thing, you can actually associate that, not perfectly, but you can associate that with the ability to pay back a loan. Something very different that technology is now opening up. And so if you start to use these other ways of thinking about credit that aren't the traditional ways, maybe add them on top, you can start to think about ways that people could start to move to the ability to get loans or credit in ways that we've never imagined before. And that's what's so exciting to me about this coalition that can come together. If we combine all the ideas out there, I think we can reinvent the way we think about things. And stories like yours, Justin, and yours, Tiffany, can be very different if we can start to pull this together.
Sometimes there's a stigma, and partly out of politics, partly out of other things in society, about when you're down on your luck in terms of the financial situation that you find yourself in. But you look at Tiffany, and I think you got more degrees than I do, and you get a sense, and Justin's running the successful business, et cetera, and everybody in the movie, and you feel like these guys played by the rules, and it's not right that they should be in this tough spot. And I think that there's a way to find a way to help them to get to a better spot. And so I want to thank everybody that was involved in the movie. Derek, great job on directing, obviously. Davis, thanks for taking on the project. Dan for putting it together. Jen for being in it. And obviously Justin and Tiffany who are here too. Thank you guys.